All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to begin with this session. Before I do that, a humble request from all of my audience members to please be seated, to kindly settle down. In the meantime, I'm going to reintroduce the topic. It is all about breaking the structures, breaking silos for businesses, creating a connected experience across payments, lending, and compliance. This very, very important topic is going to be moderated by Mr. Shailendra Thakur, Chief Transform Technology, NPCI, Bharat Bill Pay Limited. And our esteemed speaker panel includes Mr. Sivaramakrishnan Iswaran, CEO, Zoho Payment Technologies and Global Head Finance and Operations, BU Zoho. Ms. Christine Tan, Head of FIG Sales, JP Morgan. Ms. Manasi Pandey, MD and Country Head of GPC India, HSBC. And Mr. Tejas Goenka, the Managing Director of Tally Solutions. I want all of you to please put your hands together and make some noise as I welcome our moderator and panelists up on the dais.
Yeah, any order is fine. So, thank you, and welcome to this session on breaking silos for businesses. Today we will dive into some of the gaps and islands that exist within this ecosystem for businesses, and what some of the perspectives bring out, and our partners, banking partners, and some of our ecosystem partners think about it. As of now, when we speak about businesses, they buy and sell goods, services, and make payments and receive payments, file returns and compliances, and all of this. Every business does in their own unique way, other than regulatory compliance. That's the only formalized process that they have to go through. Everything else is very custom. The world the business world is very, very custom. Every transaction that you want to do has some kind of setup. And hence, each of these businesses use different tools, ERPs, CRM, accounting, payments. All of those today are in a fragmented way, disjoint, and that's what is creating the silos. The silos today, what we see are in the procure to pay, quote to cash or finance, and record to report. So these are the three major workflows that a business handles, but all of these today we see as silos. Or in other words, sale, purchase, payment, lending, recording, reporting, all of these are solved by custom softwares or softwares of different flavors. And none of these softwares are talking to each other. And sometimes the same variant of software from same vendor is not talking to another business directly for obvious reasons. And with these, I would like to invite Mr. Tejas for your views on what kind of opportunities that you see that exists in this space, and how the silos are adding complexities from the ERP and accounting perspectives.
Thanks for having me. I think if you look at the small business landscape in the country, a very difficult task is to figure out how to automate them. And one example that I will take is there's a market in Bangalore called Chickpet. And in Chickpet, you will typically find garments, saris. It's a hub for the rest of at least Karnataka to go and buy clothing items. And it's all a wholesale market to a large extent. If you go there, the way that business happens is not how most software actually gets built. And payment methods are very different. Recording methods are very different. People will borrow a sari from the shop next door to sell a sari. So now imagine sort of recording this, right? There's no purchase, but you're selling something. I think the nature of that business makes it first hard to automate. Once you've automated, now trying to figure out how you will connect them, get them to manage payouts becomes all the more complicated. So over a period of years, I think the silos that have sort of formed are that systems work very independently from each other. Banks, when they give a statement, they give a statement in their way. Accounting happens in a very different way. For example, I just got my HDFC bank statement. They've got one page of bank charges. There's no way I'm going to account for all those bank charges in my books. So the point is that when you look at the landscape of India, the mass of India, building technology that works for them has made it sort of isolated in a way. And I think what you guys are doing with NBBL, building a broad ecosystem, is going to start helping that. But we'll come to that maybe.
Yeah. Thanks, Tejas, for that. And you spoke about accounting, you spoke about ordering, and then accounting for the different kind of charges. And this is where I would like to bring Shiva Iswaran, you. Other than just the ERP, because you are also a payment aggregator. So how do you see the opportunities and challenges in the similar space? What kind of challenges your customers come with, and what kind of opportunities do you see? It should be here. It should be here. See?
Thanks, Shailendra, and thanks, Tejas, for the excellent answer. See, the thing is, we have been into this space, finance and operations space, for the last 17, 18 years, serving the SMEs. And the way things operate is really in silos, right? Let's take two businesses transacting with each other, right? Let's say like one business is buying products from the other business. Today, the way it happens is, this business actually, the seller actually sends out a quote to the buyer. And typically, these sellers and buyers will be in different systems. And even if they are operating in the same software, it will not be tightly integrated, in the sense like it will not be able to automate things. So the buyer ends up recording the quote. And then actually, once he records the quote, he accepts the quote. Maybe he actually sends out a purchase order to the seller. Seller records it. Again, translates that into an invoice, and then sends the invoice back to the buyer. Again, the payment, reconciliation. So a lot of things by nature are in silos, right? And different businesses actually have tried to automate this. But the problem is, as such, as Mr. Tejas pointed out, the solution is not simple, right? So larger businesses actually spend millions of dollars trying to automate this. They actually try to bring in the entire ecosystem into a particular software. So they push it to their distributors and the suppliers, both upstream and downstream. But if you actually look at the distributor, typically a distributor might be dealing with multiple enterprises again. So though the problem gets solved at the enterprise level, the problem actually manifests itself for the distributors and the suppliers who are SMEs. So the challenge is real. And each and every software solution provider try to automate, try to bring in some kind of automation to it. Like in Zoho, say for example, we try to automate it for the customers who actually are in the Zoho's ecosystem, right? See, we as an individual player cannot, that is, our reach is limited. So we cannot actually set in standards or do a lot about interoperability. So whoever is interacting within our ecosystem, let's say for example, if the seller and the buyer are in our ecosystem, then we try to automate a lot of things. Like say for example, If both the buyer and seller are there, we try to say, with a click of a button, the quote gets converted into a purchase order, and the purchase order flows to the other end, it becomes a sales order. With a click of a button, converts into an invoice. So we try to automate, but as such, the problem really exists. And what Bharat Connect for business is doing is a real godsend. And once the standard comes in, it will be very easy for us. So we strongly believe it is all about providing value to the customers, and this actually can do magic to the customers, particularly SMEs and the MSMEs in India.
Thanks, Iswaran, for this. And thank you for the encouraging words. And this is where I would like to pivot to Manasi, Miss Manasi, from HSBC, which is a bank and powering a lot of businesses in India. From HSBC's vantage point, how do you see ERP silos, the fragmented payment rails, and compliance boundaries impact the global treasury operations and so on and so forth? So,
yeah, I think our vantage point view touches Indian multinationals, it touches global multinationals, and then again, they are ecosystem companies. So we genuinely are looking at it from the point of view of the distributors, and of course the anchor corporates. And when you define the cross-border side as well, I think that is even more siloed. If we thought local was siloed, that's even worse. And supply chains are evolving, so that just adds to the level of complexity. I think if you just see the overall flow in terms of numbers, you have, say, $250 trillion of flows. At any point, circa 7 trillion is kind of stuck in inefficiencies. So that's really the scale of the problem. I think we've come a long way in the last decade, but also the overall scale of flows has grown. So definitely this, this does need, I would think this is a top priority for every treasurer. And it's the cost of compliance again, and if you just take for banks, just the cost of financial crime, that's around $260 billion. But if I just take an example of plain GST for our clients with the change that's happened recently, in the absence of, an interoperable system, the individual cost of just getting some of those compliances in place, is time-taking, and it impacts immediate business at the core level. So I think if we were to think of what are the 3 things which will help reduce the silos, I don't think the silo is going away in a hurry. I think all we can hope for is what are the pockets that we can address to make it less painful and better connected. I think in terms of the 3 key cornerstones, I would think interoperability and, BCB does that. The second is always on infrastructure. You do that for local rails. So, of course, cross-border is a different story. Lots happening there, including, I think HSBC has just recently worked on tokenized liquidity in 4 global markets, and that does allow, kind of the 24/7, solution bit there. I think the last piece that's going to be a cornerstone to kind of get to a more connected experience is really going to be intelligence at the core. And that's the thematic on AI, what GFF is really kind of debating on. So if you see these 3 drivers really, that's the path to, the connected economy ahead. And I think we still have some time to go, especially on the last one. And there are a lot of problems to solve, right, within these. So it's a good dream to head towards. But within that, you will need to pick and choose what resources and which are the problems that you will solve early than late. And again, inclusion being the other piece, he mentioned a lot of the local markets and trade, and a lot of that is getting formalized as well. So both cross-border and local, I think, there is much to do there.
Thanks, Manasi. And true that silos are not disappearing in a hurry. But our efforts are to break them, definitely. Make as many silos disappear as we can. Our aim right now has been, or till now has been, to solve first for the domestic market, because SME and MSME power 80% of our economy almost. And we want to really solve for India. And once we solve for India, the scale of India tells you that you can solve it for the world. And with that world perspective, I want to bring in Ms. Christine. So what are the global trends in financing for MSME? What initiatives are prominent currently that your organization is driving? Because you guys are bank for banks. So please bring in your perspectives.
Thank you, Shailendra. And just to give you some context, I mean, JP Morgan, we are Bank for Banks. We have about 4,000 plus relationships with financial institutions and fintechs. We're humbled. We process about 11 trillion a day, and that comes with a lot of requirements with regards to, ability to do more real-time payments, efficiency, as well as compliance and regulatory demands. So again, I think the real themes for us this year and going forward, I've just come back from Sibos as well. There's the need for interoperability, but also real-time payments. And many of the markets in Asia have already gone into real time with respect to Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, India, China, etc. Now, cross-border makes it a little bit more challenging, and what we're trying to facilitate is to open up that connectivity with banks, with fintechs, with buyers and sellers. And we're actually now launching, Wire 365, which opens connectivity even on 24/7 on weekends. And somebody, by the way, I've been to Chickpeck, so somebody selling their product, they would like to receive money as soon as possible. So a few themes on top of that will be cross-currency. Ability to be able to receive in rupee, the seller or the buyer may be sourcing from Turkey or South Africa, etc. So this multi-currency complexity does come in, and we're trying to effectively support some of these transactions by providing 120 currencies in 160 countries. Our footprint is also geared towards providing advisory, local customs and nuances, but also up-tiering to the global standards. And the regulatory complexity is becoming increasingly more a focus for the regulators. And finally, I think the fraud control element of it as well. There are a lot more sophisticated scammers out there, and protecting consumers, protecting buyers and sellers in terms of fraud controls by leveraging technology, leveraging AI, and that's something that we're focusing on. Finally, I think we also work with a whole span of clientele base. So from a financing standpoint, whether it's big sponsors, PE, VCs, those are kind of elements of financing in terms of investing in smaller companies. We also support the ecosystem in terms of ability to provide specialization in the fintech segment. And then finally, I think on the trade finance side of things, supply chain and structured trade, that's something I think we all look forward to partnering with all of you to help effectively be more inclusive and help the economy progress further.
So thanks, Christine, for that amazing viewpoint. What we have observed is that there is an extended emphasis on compliance, the complexity that this entire ecosystem or space deals with. And once you have compliance and complexity, there are inherent issues of what do you trust in, how do you trust cross-border, the line of credit or the letter of credit and letter of intent and all of those aspects. Try to solve that. But all of those instruments are currently offline. None of them are online. Even in domestic, right? How do you bring trust into the ecosystem so that when my buyer, if I am a supplier, when my buyer says that the money will arrive in 5 days, it will really arrive in 5 days. There are these aspects. And all of these create unique needs for the businesses. And this is where I will come back to you, Iswaran. How Zoho is addressing the needs of customer base and how Bharat Connect for Business is helping you address some of these in terms of complexity, in terms of compliance, in terms of trust, and what's been your...
Yeah, first and foremost, so as I said, it reduces a lot of effort and energy for businesses. So they don't have to do duplicate entry or lot of, or this helps them move towards zero data entry, right? That actually saves them time and effort so they can focus on the other areas, maybe compliance and all those things. I can give you an example. Like, so we have one large business, one large entity, where they have about 700 business units within them, and and they have a lot of inter business unit transactions. So just imagine invoices, purchase orders, and all those flowing through all those business units, and the biggest challenge is like they had there is to reconcile and to finalize the accounts, it took several months, and at times they were not able to do it within time. That is, they were not able to be compliant because this actually comes under Ministry of Education, and they were not able to submit reports on time, and this was a huge challenge for them. And we actually introduced Bharat Connect for business to them, and they initially looked at things in a very skeptical way because they had actually tried out multiple solutions and they had miserably failed. And when we actually introduced to them, they actually adopted it for a selective set of business units, and they were extremely happy. And now they are actually continuously expanding it. So that way, this eliminates data entry, automates a lot of, there is acceptance or communication, collaboration, everything gets accepted, gets easy. Like say, for example, I get an invoice or I get a quote. I can very well say like I can accept the quote, and the communication is a lot easier instead of saying like, instead of using an email or a disjoint communication system, right? So that way actually it helps a lot, and it helps the businesses to be a lot more compliant. Things gets a lot easier for them.
Thanks. And similarly, Tejas, how an interconnected, always available, interoperable system like this, or any other such system, fit into the future of Tally?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us, I think the way we visualized the future of small businesses in the country has been to see how much they can connect to their ecosystems. Obviously, the biggest stakeholders that they have are their customers and their suppliers. And I think that the way Bharat Connect enables them now to interact in their own unique way with their customers and suppliers is something I'm really looking forward to seeing how it can unlock probably 2 or 3 big things. The first is that most people don't add in a new supplier very regularly. They have a group, they're working, and they're happy. It's the same thing on the customer side. So it's not so much a trust issue that most people have, but it's a reconciliation issue. And reconciliation issues start when misentries, spelling mistakes, slip of the little finger, things like that. And that leads to 10 days of delayed payment, 20 days of delayed payment, simply to find where this reconciliation issue actually happened. And the moment you introduce a system like Bharat Connect, you now have the ability to be able to no more need to reconcile. I think that's probably one big area. I think the second one is that today, if I look at trade financing is limited to the large blue chip organizations, and banks rightly so find it only comfortable to work with suppliers or customers of such blue chip organizations. The moment you have NBBL, Bharat Connect now coming into the picture, over a period of time, you have a small distributor or a small manufacturer or a small retailer and their ecosystem now having access to trade financing, simply because the bank now has a trustable trail on which they can think about underwriting. So the $600 billion credit gap that a lot of people talk about in India, I think that this ultimately can lead to a lot of unlocking of that potential with this underwritability. So if you ask me, I think the big enablers are probably going to be these two. Of course, ease of working will happen. I think there are many other ways in which ease of working can happen, but these are 2 big things that we see.
Yeah, thanks Tejas for bringing in the insights about the trade financing. And that's what brings me back to Mansi, you. How does HSBC envision leveraging platform like BCB to transition from being just a financial service provider to becoming a true ecosystem partner for corporates?
Yeah, I think I think they just touched upon the reconciliation conundrum, and for a lot of our clients, they're also growing into acquisitions. They have ambition to kind of do more, and that brings in a lot of dependence on adding visibility, recon, forecasting. So when we view BCB, and we've been very privileged to really hold a lot of master classes, kind of being sure that we are part of your journey there. I think we're convinced that treasurers, this is top of priority for treasurers. What obviously they do need is sometimes they aren't well equipped with the right resourcing and the time slots to make it happen. And therefore, I think we see ourselves as playing a role of an enabler. Native integrations are super crucial. We already do a lot of that globally for a lot of the top, whether it's ERPs or HRMS or TMS systems. I think what we do want to seriously do is actually be a strategic ecosystem partner so that we're actually closing the loop for the big picture for our corporate. And we're not just selling banking products and services, but we're trying to get embedded into their workflow. And I think the best integrations are the invisible ones. And if you solve for BCB in the true sense of it, and it kind of marries a lot of us into the workflow, it's truly invisible. And I think that's going to be definitely the path forward. Our ethos is that if our customers can focus on growth, then we orchestrate the movement of money, data, and trust. And that's really our spot in the story.
Yeah, thanks for that. And partly I call it the velocity of money. So we want to increase the velocity of money or velocity of capital in India, especially for the SME and MSME. And Christine, I will come to you. From global perspective, how do you see systems which are interoperable, always available, really reliable? How do you see the interplay for the global markets, and what kind of learnings can we take away from that?
Sure. Firstly, I'll kind of cite the volume just from an India perspective in terms of remittance flows. That's about 150 billion. You've got exports, another 850 billion. So again, I think that interoperability is very critical in terms of making remittances and making payments and imports and exports in real time. So that's something that we are very much heavily focusing on, whether it's the cross-currency solutions, opening up channels for banks to actually transfer and send and receive on real-time basis. But more importantly, I think we are also focusing on the innovation aspects. So certainly, I think embedded finance, where you have the ecosystem here, we're also focusing on that from an international standpoint to be able to bridge some of these cross-border purchases and then imports as well. So embedded finance is an area. Secondly, I think on the innovation piece, we are doing quite significantly well. We've done a launch in Gift City with the banks in terms of ability to clear dollars real time in India time zone. That's in one example. Second example is money movement. So a lot of fintechs and marketplaces, e-marketplaces, they need to move funds and optimize liquidity. And we can do it through atomic settlement using blockchain technology. The third piece is pre-validation. When you're sending and receiving, you do want to make sure that the account details, the sender is effectively sending to the right beneficiary. And we have tools to be able to do API, account validation, cross-border. We've launched it over 50 countries now in terms of ability to validate these account details ahead of when the money movement happens. And then finally, I think, just coming back from Cybos again, a lot of themes around stablecoins, CBDCs, deposit tokens. So ourselves, we've launched, commercial paper, bond issuances, collateral financing using deposit tokens. And I think that's going to be the way forward as well. So efficiency, removing friction, but at the same time, enabling the right compliance standard is something that we're heavily focusing on.
Thanks for bringing this perspective. Although within the space of India, there is definitely a CBDC. There is the e-rupee which is existing, and more and more adoption will come there. Stable coins, it will take some time because the regulatory view will take some time to come as clarity. With a diverse discussion, so we see the size of opportunity is massive for India as an economy, for Indian businesses as a player in the space, and the Indian solution providers. We have 3 of the largest solution providers from Indian space here, and the global perspective also coming in. This is where we would like to invite some questions from the audience. So please feel free. Either we confused the entire audience or they're very clear. Yeah.
So, hi, I'm Puneet Mehta. So, just wanted to know that when this particular interoperability will be working, you talked about, Shivaram, you talk about Zoho to Zoho. So, we are looking forward from Zoho to Tally and Tally to Zoho. So, this is something that is going to be felicitated by NBBL, right?
Yeah, of course. That's why I said individual players have their own limits, right? We can do it only within our ecosystem. But when something like this comes up, the standards, interoperability comes up, we as a company, we have always been the first to latch on all those opportunities. So we actually worked with NBBL and launched our integration with Bharat Connect last year. So we have been live with Bharat Connect for the last 1 year. And yes, any player in the ecosystem will be able to communicate to us. So we used to develop our own proprietary technologies. We used to integrate with players individually, with banks individually, with various payment providers individually. And now with Bharat Connect, all this actually becomes seamless and easy because with one integration, we will be able to do a lot more things.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
yes,
and what are other platforms that would be there, Shailendra, if you could just...
So we are working with all major ERP and accounting players. Of course, these 2 gentlemen together represent almost 80% of the Indian market. But in large corporates, you will see that the entrenched behavior or entrenched participants, we are working with them. They will also go live with us. Zoho and Tally are already live. There are 6 other also who are live. And the interoperability is ingrained into the system. They don't have to do anything special for interoperability. It's just like Manasi said, right? It's invisible. You don't have to do anything for it. We make sure that the protocol is interoperable. The data exchange is really intact. The system is designed to resist, detect, and reject any kind of efforts to manipulate the data, either in flight or later on also. So that's where the interoperability solves, right? So it's been live, transactions have been happening, and the ecosystem is growing.
Wonderful.
Yes, sir. So trades platform or the trade receivable and the financing platforms, the 5 aggregators that are licensed entities from the regulator RBI. So 2 of them are already integrated with us for the last 1 year.
Okay.
So if an entity today has been onboarded or by Treads, they can almost get their financing done in near real time, like few minutes, not even hours. Few minutes is what it would take Treads to do an invoice discounting or a factoring or a reverse factoring.
From the Bharat. And how about the OCAN framework, OCAN, ONDC? A lot of networks are coming up now.
So those, so ONDC and OCAM primarily rely on declaring a protocol and then letting the ecosystem adopt it. We work with the ecosystem to build from the ground up, and we provide the rails and the infrastructure, and we act as a neutral entity to the entire ecosystem that ensures that your data, your business interests remain yours. For example, customer of Zoho does not become a direct customer for me, although they are our customers. But their business remains their business, Tally's business remains Tally's business, HSBC is similar. So with the ecosystem partners, the way we build our relationships, we facilitate rather than compete. And that's where the difference is, that a large set of players participate with us, and that's what creates the flywheel effect.
I'll just maybe add one more point to what Shailendra said. I think the opportunity you should look at is a little different. If you look at Treads, I think it's very, very blue chip and supply chain of blue chip oriented. I think if you look at what NBBL can do with Bharat Connect, I think it fundamentally changes that. I think you now have a digital record for almost all businesses on which banks can potentially take financing decisions. And I think that it can become honestly much, much larger than Treads itself, simply by having an invoice, having a history with NBBL that a bank can now trust and lend on that particular document.
How about IBDIC? They're also building the same stuff, same infrastructure.
They should build, and there is a space for multiple efforts to go towards it. And diversity of thought process, diversity of idea, and of course, execution is what matters.
Sure. Thank you.
There's a lady there. Can we?
Hi. So do we see, just like in Europe, we have SEPA, because when we're talking about cross-currency payments, right, and also interoperability of the entire ecosystem, I mean, the entities across the ecosystem. So, for example, they have the SEPA where across, the Europe, the payments are instant, and as well as there is a standard like IBAN they are following, right? So recently we were implementing something. So where we realized that, it's just Europe where this is acceptable, whereas in other countries, in fact, not even in US, it's not going like that. So do we foresee in the Asian market something like the SEPA in the European market? Because UPI recently was, I think, Singapore is also using to some extent. So do we foresee, or is this something already in progress?
So maybe I'll just chime in on that. I think most of the regulators are actually bilaterally working with amongst each other. So there has been already real time between Singapore, India, Singapore, China, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, etc. Those are bilateral. What JP Morgan is trying to do as well is to facilitate, at least from a major currency standpoint, opening that channels for banks to facilitate 24/7. So essentially, you can do cross-currency in terms of making it real time. And that is becoming, in the future, I think, more feasible and probable. But to open up, just like a SEPA, is probably going to be taking a long while. So we are looking at the bank partnerships to facilitate opening up the gates and moving it from a book transfer standpoint amongst the countries that we facilitate the partnerships. So I think hopefully we'll get there, but not completely solve the wish list that you're asking for.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it, Christine. I guess you can just look up Project Nexus. That's the one that Christine is referring to, where you've got regulators of a couple of countries get together. We're again trying to solve for a bank-agnostic solution there. So that's the ideal situation, because you're not then only trying to kind of connect within one bank, doing it, within their own ecosystem. So I guess that's a start for Asia. But I guess if that's successful, and I have no doubt it will be, it will then open up opportunities for the other countries to then kind of get added as well into the theme. And NPCI and NPCI International is also playing a key role in that along with us. So we're very happy to be part of that journey.
Thanks. And with this, we are coming very close to our time. So I would really like to thank my panelists, Tejas, Ms. Christine, Manasi, and Shiva, and the really engaging audience. Thank you for taking us through this journey today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would request all of our panelists to come together for a group photograph. Mr. Shailendra Thakur, our moderator for this session, has also been very gracious in bringing some mementos for the panelists. I would request him to go ahead and take this moment to kindly present the mementos to all of them. Mr. Iswaran, Ms. Pandey, Ms. Tan, and Mr. Goenka. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, can we have a huge round of applause